The dispatch ping said abandoned vehicle. I drove out, hooked it, and pulled it onto the bed without thinking about anything but overtime. I'd already done 2 calls, my back hurt, my boss had been riding my ass about numbers, and I just wanted one more quick tow so I could clock out and not think. The car sat off a frontage road behind a chain link fence and weeds, angled like it quit mid-turn. No driver, no note, no broken glass. Just that quiet, wrong emptiness, like the air around it didn't match the rest of the night. I winched it up, climbed onto the bed to check the straps, and swept my flashlight through the cabin, because that's what you do when you're alone at night and your gut starts tapping you on the shoulder. Then I saw the inside. A purse sat on the passenger seat like someone set it down and never picked it up again. A kid's sticker book lay open on the floor with half a page finished. A crusted sippy cup and the holder stank like old milk. The back seat had a hard dent, deep enough that the foam looked crushed like someone had been forced down there. There was a smear on the inside of the rear window, like a forehead slit across it. In the back footwell, I saw a little sock, inside out, stuck to the carpet like it had been stepped on, yanked off, forgotten. The whole car looked like a life stopped mid-step. I told myself not to get dramatic. I've towed wrecks with blood in them. I've towed cars that smelled like meth and piss. I've towed vehicles people lived in. This could be anything. People ditch cars all the time. But my hand still moved on habit. I popped the glove box to grab the registration so I could write the intake clean and get paid. The name hit me hard because I'd seen on a flyer at the gas station the day before. Missing. Please call. Last seen. Same spelling. Same face from that grainy photo I'd barely glanced at while I bought coffee. Seeing it on official paper, right there in my hand, made my mouth go dry. My first thought wasn't even holy shit. It was, please let this be a coincidence. Please let it be a different person with the same name. Then I saw the address on the registration. Same town, same zip. My heart started thumping like it wanted out. My phone was in my pocket. One call, and it's their problem, right? Except I know how it goes. Cops treat you like you did it. They hold your truck. They ask why you touched anything. Your boss loses money and makes it your fault. I've watched guys do the right thing and get chewed up for it while everyone else keeps rolling. And I'll be honest, I was thinking about my own shit. Rent, child support, my boss screaming, me losing a day's pay because someone decided my truck was evidence. I stood there staring at that purse and that sticker book and that dent and felt my brain looking for an exit like a cornered animal. So I didn't call. I climbed down, slammed my door, and drove straight to the yard. I didn't park it up front with the other night drops. I took it to the far back, behind 2 wrecks with blown windows, where the cameras don't catch the plates clean. The whole time I kept expecting headlights to pull in behind me, sirens, somebody yelling to stop. Nothing, just chain rattle and my own breathing. When I set the car down, the suspension bounced once like it exhaled. In the office, I filled out the intake sheet and wrote the wrong VIN digit. Just one. My pen hovered for a second, then I did it anyway. I even said fat fingers out loud like I was rehearsing the excuse. My coworker walked past, saw the sweat on my face, asked why I looked like shit, and I told him to mind his business. He laughed, called me jumpy, and kept walking. I wanted to grab him by the collar and drag him outside. I wanted him to see the sock, the dent, the smear, so I wouldn't be the only one carrying it. I didn't. I went home and didn't sleep. I kept smelling that sour cup even after I showered. I kept hearing the winch motor in my head. Around 3 in the morning, I got up, walked into my kitchen, and stood there with the fridge door open like cold air could fix me. I almost called the tip number from the flyer. I even typed it in, stared at it, then deleted it because I couldn't figure out how to make my voice sound like it wasn't mine. Cops called the next day asking about that make and model. The dispatcher dumped it on me because my name was on the tow. The officer sounded calm, like it was just another question on a list. I said I hadn't seen it. I sounded bored. I let him move on to the next lead. After I hung up, I had to sit on my bumper because my knees felt soft. Then I did another thing I'm ashamed of. I went to the back row and checked the car like I was checking a wound. I looked through the glass again. I didn't open the door. I didn't touch the purse. I just stared until my eyes watered Then I walked away and went back to towing like a machine. A few days after that, 2 officers actually came by the yard. My boss put on his big, friendly voice and acted like they were inconveniencing him. They asked for logs, asked about pickups off the frontage roads. My boss complained about wasting time and everybody thinking tow guys are suspects. I stood there behind him, nodding along, and I could feel sweat running down my spine. One of the cops looked at me longer than he needed to. He asked if I'd had any night drops that fell off. I said no, kept my face blank, and watched him write something down anyway. Work didn't stop. It never stops. Cars kept coming in with busted radiators and smashed fenders. People screaming at me on the roadside like I personally ruined their life. My boss kept barking about speed. A coworker joked one afternoon about how the back lot was turning into a graveyard and asked if we should start charging rent. I snapped and told him to shut the fuck up. He stared at me, then said, real quiet, "What's your problem?" I almost told him. I almost confessed right there in the dirt between 2 wrecks. Instead, I walked away because that's what I do when the truth shows up. My boss cornered me later about attitude. He said I was slow, said I cost him money, said if I couldn't handle the job, I could get the fuck out. He poked my chest with a finger. I wanted to hit him. I swallowed it and nodded because I need the hours. While he talked, all I could see behind him was the rows of cars and that hidden one back there like a rotten tooth. Then a woman showed up at the gate with a folder in her hands and eyes that looked bruised from crying. I didn't know she was the sister until she spoke, but I recognized the face from the flyer right away. She asked if we towed a car like hers. She said the missing woman's name, not as a headline, as a person. The gate guy started his policy speech. She begged anyway, voice shaking, saying she was her sister and she just needed something, anything. The gate guy looked at me like help. I could have ended it right there. I could have said yes. I shook my head. She stared at me like she'd been slapped. Then she turned and walked back to her car slow, like her body forgot how to move. I watched her leave and felt this hot, sick anger at her for showing up, for making it real in daylight, for forcing me to see what I was doing. Then I felt the guilt crash in behind the anger, and I had to turn away so nobody saw my face. After that, I started moving the car deeper whenever I had an excuse, like I could bury it under other wrecks and bury the feeling with it. Rows getting tight, I'd tell myself, inventory shift. I'd hook it for 2 seconds, drag it a few feet, set it down again, and every time the chains clanked, I felt like I was dragging a person, not a vehicle. I kept thinking about that dent and that sock and what it meant. I kept thinking about how a sticker book ends up open on the floor when someone's in a hurry, when someone's distracted, when someone's trying to keep a kid calm while something bad happens. That car sat in our yard for weeks. Rain found its way in and filled the floorboards. Flies found the cup once the heat hit it. The sticker book warped and curled like wet skin. The purse slumped sideways as the seat soaked through. The smell changed too, from sour milk to something thicker, and I stopped getting close enough to breathe it. I started taking longer routes through the yard so I wouldn't see it. I started avoiding the gas station with the flyer because I couldn't stand the face on the paper looking straight at me. Nothing came and fixed it. No miracle type. No easy confession that made me feel clean. Just days stacking on top of my lie until it felt normal to carry it. That's the part that scares me now. Not the cops. Not my boss. Me getting used to it. Me learning I could shrug at a crying woman and still go eat dinner. Me learning I could lie to a calm cop and then go tow somebody's minivan like the world didn't just split. I still tow cars. I still answer dispatch. I still pass missing flyers and pretend they're just paper. Her ID card hit the counter. I picked it up, scanned it, and looked at her name like I owned it. Glass between us, clinic logo behind me, little beep from the scanner like it was cheering. My badge said front desk. What really meant was I sat all day with a keyboard that opened people up. Names, addresses, diagnoses, meds, emergency contacts. All the shit they swear stays private. The therapists walk through like they were the only ones in the building with morals. Nobody watched the person watching everyone. She came in every Thursday for therapy. Same time, same coat, same tired face. I started timing my breaks to match her check-in so I could watch her hands shake while she signed the clipboard. Not a cute shake, a hard one, like her fingers wanted to bail. She always wrote small. She always checked the door lock with her eyes after she sat down. She never took a magazine. She sat there like she was waiting for something bad to finally pick a day. Marcy worked the other station. She hated me. She'd snap when I moved too slow, when I printed the wrong form, when I breathed wrong. "Do your job," she'd hiss, like I wasn't sitting 2 feet away. I'd nod and keep my face neutral. Inside, I'd count the minutes until Thursday, because that was the only time anything felt sharp. I learned her pattern. She came early, sat in the same chair that faced the exit, and pressed her thumb into her palm until it went white. She jumped when the buzzer went off. She flinched when someone raised their voice at the copay window. She apologized for taking up air. People think therapy offices are soft places. They're not. They're waiting rooms full of hurt people trying not to spill. Then she left me a door cracked open. One day, she forgot her paperwork in the waiting room. I grabbed it before anyone else did. I flipped through it fast. Diagnoses, med changes, panic triggers, a whole private life printed in black ink like a fucking gift. It wasn't dramatic. Her therapist called her name. She stood, she walked back, and the packet stayed on the chair like trash. My hand moved. I stepped out from behind the counter, scooped it up, and slid it under my keyboard. Marcy didn't see because she was fighting with an insurance rep on speaker. The therapist didn't see because therapists don't look at the lobby like it matters. I walked back like I'd picked up a pen. All shift, I felt that packet there, warm through the cheap laminate. Every time the phone rang, I heard it like a warning. I told myself I'd scan it. I told myself I'd do the right thing. I didn't. At close, I waited until the hall went quiet. I locked the front door, turned the sign, and took the packet into the copy room. The copier hummed and clicked and spit out paper that felt like proof. I didn't copy everything. I copied the parts that made her sound unstable. History notes, triggers, panic in crowds, episodes of dissociation, past self-harm, words that make people back up without even thinking. I folded the copies and stuffed them into a manila folder. I wrote intake in big, dumb letters like that made it invisible. I slid it into my desk drawer under spare lanyards. I locked it. I should have dumped the original into the shred bin. Instead, I slipped it into the stack that gets scanned in the morning like I was fixing a mistake, not making one. Next day, the therapist asked why pages were missing from the scan. He sounded annoyed, not alarmed. I blamed the scanner and said I'd rerun it. I reran the harmless pages and acted like that solved it. He sighed and walked away. That was the moment it clicked for me. Nobody was guarding anything. They were just tired and busy and trusting the wrong people. After that, I stopped pretending it was an accident. Every Thursday, I watched her sign in, and I'd feel that folder like a weight inside my desk. Sometimes I'd click her chart open when no one was behind me. The software asked, "Are you sure?" I'd hit yes. A little rush every time. Not excitement. Control. Like I could reach through the glass and squeeze. The clinic ran on chaos. Fullness rang nonstop. People yelled about bills. Therapists ran late and blamed us. Marcy kept snapping, and I started snapping back. I'd say, "I'm handling it," with my teeth clenched. She'd glare like she wanted to throw the phone at my head. One afternoon, she saw the corner of my manila folder when my drawer didn't close. She asked why I had extra intake paperwork in there. I slammed the drawer and told her to mind her business. She called me a sketchy little fuck. I told her to stop sniffing around my drawer and do her damn job. A couple patients looked over. I liked that I didn't care. My supervisor pulled me aside and asked if the front desk had a vibe problem. I said Marcy was hostile. Marcy said I was lazy. The supervisor nodded, told us to communicate better, then left. No consequences. No camera checks. No lock changes. Just more keys and more trust. Then an email went out about a routine compliance check, IT reviewing access logs for unusual chart activity. I read it and felt cold crawl up my arms. I started closing windows the second footsteps hit the tile. I started leaving my screen on the scheduling page like it was a shield. I started taking the folder home in my backpack, then bringing it back like movement made it safer. Marcy watched me pack up and smirked like she knew. She didn't. She just liked the idea that I was guilty of something. I also had a cousin with a daycare. He ran 2 locations, always hiring, always acting like he was saving the world because he watched kids for money. He texted me one night complaining about flakes and weirdos. Then he sent a screenshot of an applicant list and asked if I knew anyone. There, in the middle, was her name. Same spelling, same zip code. My stomach went tight. She'd been coming in with a folder lately, cleaner clothes under the same coat, hair pulled back like she was trying to look sharp. One Thursday, she asked to update her phone number for interviews. Marcy snapped right on the sheet. She nodded like she deserved to be snapped at. Her hand shook so hard the pen left a streak, and I had her whole on paper. I told my cousin I didn't know her. That was the lie I could live with. I didn't know her birthday or favorite food. I just knew what made her shake. I didn't call the employer directly. I used a burner email and forwarded concerns with her full name and enough detail to feel real. I acted like I was protecting patients, protecting kids, protecting someone. I wrote it like I was part of the clinical staff. I said I'd observed escalating episodes and significant instability. I used the right buzzwords so it sounded like a liability memo, not a rumor. I hit send, logged out, deleted the account, and sat there staring at my own reflection in the dark monitor. The next day, my cousin called laughing like it was gossip. He said, "We got a wild email about that applicant." He said he didn't want risk. He said he'd already marked her as a no. He asked if I'd heard anything about her. I told him he did the right thing. My voice came out steady. When I hung up, my hands didn't shake. Hers did. Mine didn't. The week after that, she came in looking tight and wired, like she was holding herself together with string. She signed in, sat down, and kept rubbing her palms on her jeans. She stared at her phone, read something, and went still. Not crying, not breathing right, just still, like a door slammed inside her, and she was listening to the echo. When her therapist opened the door and called her back, she stood like her legs didn't believe in her and followed anyway. I waited for Thursday like a sick kid waiting for snow day. Work stayed ugly. Marcy kept pushing. She accused me of losing forms. She said the therapist complained about me. I told her to stop talking to me like I was trash. She called me a lazy bastard. I said, "Say it again and take it to HR." She smirked because she knew HR didn't care. I went back to the computer and checked the schedule over and over like I needed to see her name to breathe. Thursday hit. The buzzer chimed. She walked in slower than usual, coat half-buttoned, hair damp like she'd rushed. Her eyes looked swollen and raw, like she'd cried until nothing came out. She didn't look around like she usually did. She walked straight to the counter and slid her ID over like her arm weighed 100 pounds. I scanned it. Beep. I watched her sign in. Her hand shook worse. The pen tapped the board twice before she forced it down. She wrote her name like it hurt. She came in the next Thursday with swollen eyes. She signed in anyway. She sat down. She stared at the wall like she was trying not to break apart in public. I watched her from behind glass and felt my pulse slow down like I'd eaten. The tenant taped a note to my door about heat. I tore it down, crumpled it, threw it in the trash, and kept watching TV. I didn't pause it. I let the noise fill the room while I read his careful handwriting like it was disrespect. Unit 2B has no heat again. Please respond. Again, like I didn't already know. Like I hadn't already decided his problems were his problem. I told myself he was being dramatic. I told myself he liked complaining. I liked how easy it was to make that story stick. I had his file open on my laptop. Late once. Loud once. One complaint from a neighbor I liked. That was enough. I wanted him out because he pushed back and didn't kiss my ass. I didn't write that, of course. I wrote difficult tenant. I wrote uncooperative. I wrote it the way you write a diagnosis, so it feels official. The owners always preach the same thing. Keep occupancy up, keep costs down, keep the building quiet. The boiler was old, the pipes were older, and every rail fix meant a real bill. I've sat on those calls where they act friendly until money comes up, then their voices go cold. Handle it in-house. Don't create a paper trail. So I learned to stall. I learned to sound busy. I learned the little smile people trust. Most tenants grumbled, then paid. He didn't. He asked for dates and names. He quoted the lease. He saved emails. He treated me like I could be wrong, and that made me want him gone. So when he put maintenance requests, I started erasing them. Open ticket, flip the status to completed, type a note like reset thermostat or no issue found, and close it. Sometimes I'd add a fake time. Tech visited 2:15 p.m. So it looked neat. One click and the record looked clean. If he called, I'd say, our system shows it's handled, like the system was a witness and not my lie. Then I smelled it outside his door. Sewage. Not bad trash sewage, pipe sewage. That sour, wet stink that sticks in your sinuses and makes your stomach clench. I stopped for half a second, stared at his door, then kept walking because if I stopped, I'd have to act. I told myself I'd circle back. I didn't. Later, he emailed that his sink gurgled and his tub backed up, and he could hear water moving inside the walls. I marked it completed and went to lunch. A few days later, the laundry room drain started backing up again. Someone texted me, water everywhere. So I went down, opened the door, and watched brown water burp up in slow pulses. It wasn't a flood yet. It was a warning, like the building clearing its throat. I could have shut the machines off and called a plumber. I didn't. I stood there annoyed, then walked out and decided it could wait. He cornered me in the hallway. He held his phone up with videos of the ceiling dripping. I walked away. He followed. I took my keys out, walked faster, and locked myself in the office like a coward. My hand shook on the lock, and I hated him for making me feel scared, like he'd done something to me instead of me doing it to him. Through the door, I could hear him talking, steady and clipped, about heat cutting out and the smell getting worse. He said he'd call the city. He said he had pictures of mold. He said my completed tickets were bullshit. I sat there staring at my desk, jaw clenched, telling myself he was threatening staff. That's when I decided I needed paper. Not repairs. Paper. Something I could point at if he tried to push past me. I posted a notice about unauthorized occupants. I didn't need proof. I needed a scarecrow. I wrote, reports indicate, like it came from somewhere else, then sent it certified so it arrived with a tracking number. I even CC'd a generic management address, so it looked like the decision came from above. It didn't. He came down to the office furious. He wasn't screaming, but he had that controlled anger that makes your skin prickle. He asked what reports. He asked who said it. I told him lease violations were serious and his tone wasn't acceptable. He said he lived alone and I knew it. He said a friend stayed over because his unit was freezing and he couldn't sleep there. He said I was trying to shove him out instead of fixing anything. I snapped that if he didn't like it, he could move. The second it left my mouth, I knew what I'd admitted. He laughed once, short and ugly, and said I was doing this on purpose. I acted calm because calm looks like innocence. Maintenance started asking questions too. One of them said the smell was sewer gas and we needed a plumber now. I told him to stop being dramatic and pour cleaner down the drain. He said he wasn't signing his name to that. I told him he didn't have to because I could close tickets myself. He walked off muttering, and I felt this stupid victory. That same night, the owners emailed me a reminder about budget discipline and how vendors were killing margins. I replied that I had it under control. I did have it under control in the worst way. The tenant stopped staying in the unit. His lights stopped coming on at night. His mail stacked up until it bent. He'd show up only to grab clothes and leave fast, shoulders tight, like he couldn't breathe in his own place. I saw him once sitting on the front steps at midnight, head in his hands, like he didn't want to go back inside. I watched from the office window and didn't open the door. Meanwhile, the unit sat sealed up, damp and warm, and it turned into a box of rot. The smell crawled under his door into the hall. Flies started collecting around the frame. Neighbors complained. One lady called me a fucking liar on voicemail. I deleted it. A neighbor I liked asked me straight up if I was going to fix it. I told her I was waiting on parts. I went into his unit once when I knew he wasn't there. Not to fix anything, to collect ammo. I let myself in with a master key, and the air hit me heavy and sour. The bathroom ceiling sagged like a swollen bruise. A dark line ran down the wall behind the toilet and broke into fuzzy black patches of the baseboard. The paint in the kitchen bubbled near the cabinet like skin over a blister. I took pictures fast, hands sweating like I was stealing. I didn't open a wall. I didn't call anyone. I locked up and told myself I was being smart, even though I knew I was building a weapon. He caught me coming out. He didn't yell. He just said flat that I could show up for photos, but not for heat. I told him I had a right to inspect. He said I had a responsibility to repair. We stood there in the hall with that stink between us, both stubborn, and I felt this ugly urge for him to swing at me, so I could finally make him the bad guy. He didn't. He said he was sleeping on a friend's couch. Then he looked me dead in the face and said he hoped I could live with myself. He finally left. Not a big move-out day, just a slow surrender. He took what mattered and abandoned the rest because it was soaked and ruined. He dropped the keys through the slot without a speech. No vegging, no srets, just gone. I printed his ledger and highlighted every fee like a trophy. I kept his deposit. I billed him for damage. I wrote it like he'd caused the mold himself. I charged him for cleaning, paint, baseboards, odor treatment, and even tacked on an unauthorized occupancy fee to twist the knife. I added trash removal for the stuff he couldn't carry out and late fees for months he wasn't even sleeping there. I attached my pictures and labeled them move-out condition. I hit send and felt that nasty little rush like winning a fight by cheating. He emailed back saying he disputed, that he had videos, that he'd go to court. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to nobody. I just let it sit in my inbox until the thread went cold. Because silence is another kind of power when you're the one holding the records. I rented the unit 2 weeks later after a cheap paying job and a fan in the window. We slapped primer over stains and sprayed deodorizer until the place smelled like bleach and lies. The new tenant wrinkled her nose and I blamed cooking. She wanted the lower rent and wanted to believe me. People will believe you when you hold keys. The complaints started again soon enough. Heat weird. Bugs. A stain coming back through fresh paint. She sent pictures. I replied with polite emails and closed tickets the same way I always did. Completed. 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 The system looked perfect while the building kept rotting. Sometimes I walk past that door and swear I still smell that old sewage and damp drywall, even when nobody's reported anything. Maybe it's still there. Maybe it's just in me. Either way, I keep my voice soft and my face calm. I keep a notepad open on my desk, so it looks like I'm tracking everything, but the pages stay empty. I keep a pen in my hand because it makes people relax. People call me polite. People ask me to look into things. I nod and write nothing down.